uh, our reactions towards the products based on our emotions are called affect. So, what affect creates actually? Affect creates some behavior based on the emotions. So, generally, as consumers, we evaluate the products in a positive or negative way. But whatever it's the way, whether positive or negative, this creates some reaction towards some object like a product or service or a company. And our evaluations also accompany or are coming together with some type of low level of physiological, physical arousals. But generally, when we evaluate something in a positive or negative way, there is not too much physical arousal, right? So, for example, we may like a movie in a positive, or we may not like a movie, but it does not really come together with some high level of arousal. So, there's always physical arousal is generally low when we evaluate something. But when emotions are coming into place, then it becomes a source of mood for us. And moods, like positive or negative states, create some level of arousal, physical arousal. So generally, when we have emotions like happiness or fear, they become really, let's say, intense when they are associated with some events which trigger a result. This is very important. So this is why emotions are very critical, and all marketing people try to create some positive emotions as a result of the consumption experiences or purchase situations, because positive emotions lead to repeat purchases, stronger relationships, positive attitudes toward the brand or company or its products. This is why it is very important for us to really understand the importance of emotions and how they affect consumer behavior. This is very important. Now, of course, generally, the ultimate target of companies, brands, and marketing people is to generate emotions. Why? Because if we have an experience with a product or company, if we create a positive emotion, then, as I told you in previously, this will lead to stronger positive attitude and a positive evaluation of the product, brand, or the company. This is why it is extremely important to really understand the effect of the positive emotions. Okay? So we need to really be sure that when people feel good when they consume our products, or when they feel good when they interact with our company, then it is very important that this affects them in a positive way, and they try to, let's say, come again to our stores or buy the same product again because of this, let's say, positive reinforcement. You will remember from our last classes that we discussed the learning theories. If there's a positive reinforcement, which means that if you do something and you become happy, then what will happen? You will do it again because it's a reward for you. So this is the power of positive effects. So it creates positive emotions, and positive emotions lead to repeat purchases or repeat reactions. So it is very important. On the other hand, of course, sometimes uh, uh, marketing people, in addition to make people, let's say, emotionally positive when they experience the products or service with the company, or try to generate a positive effect, in short, it is a good way. It is a correct way, and it works. But on the other hand, there is another way, alternative way. I call it the dark side of marketing. This is related with creating somehow showing the negative consequences of doing or not doing something, and then influencing the customers. So this is called the negative effect. So how we employ this negative effect? Actually, in when marketers try to employ the negative effect, they try to create somehow, they try to show, demonstrate how the life of the customer will be without some product, or when they use some product, or when they don't use. So these negative emotions that may result because of not using or using the product, another product, is the result of the negative effect. So, in which context or themas we can deliver this message? We can create a thema of disgust, disgusting things, okay? Things that we want to see, we don't want to see, we don't want to hear, we don't want to experience. Disgust, disgusting things. Or let's envy. I mean, it's really funny, or let's say, or some context. And embarrassment, the cases where we don't feel comfortable, we are embraced because we don't use that product. So these are the situations where we find ourselves in an embracing situation because we don't use that product. Okay, the absence of the product leads to the embarrassment or feeling guilty. Some marketing messages try to make us feel guilty because we don't use that product. So these are all four types of contexts or themas that are used in marketing messages to create, to explain to the customer or to teach to the customer, to show the customer the consequences of using or not using a product. So this is how negative effect is implemented into the marketing communication. Let's see some examples of advertisements, and we will understand what's going on here actually. Let's about, for example, an example which creates a disgust. Generally, this is a public announcement. This is an announcement for which is against smoking. This is the advertisement copy of a, let's say, of a non-smoking campaign, a campaign against cigarettes and smoking, and tries to explain that when you smoke the cigarette, you are actually eating such disgusting material, which is float or toxins, for example, and dirt. So this is how they try to alienate or create a bad feeling about the smoking. So if you refer to the motivation theories and motivation conflicts, maybe you will remember from last week that sometimes there are motivational conflicts in a particular consumption situation. For example, in this case, if someone likes smoking, this person generates an approach motivation towards smoking, approaching motivation towards smoking because he or she likes smoking. But on the other hand, the person also knows that smoking harms the health of the person, right? It is not a healthy thing. So there's also an avoidance motivation. So you will remember from last week class, in such approach avoidance motivational conflicts, like in the smoking, at one part you are motivated to smoke because you like it, but at the other side you don't want to smoke because it may harm your health. So at one part you are approaching to smoke, and at the other side you get avoided from you try to avoid from smoking, right? So this is a typical motivation conflict called approach avoidance, right? So in this approach avoidance conflict, this advertisement tries to create pressure the avoidance part, light up the avoidance part, avoidance motivation, tries to empower the avoidance motivation, so tries to break the balance in favor of avoidance. So tries to show the disgusting picture and tries to impose a bad feeling, fear about smoking to the customer. So the avoidance motivation will be more powerful than the approach motivation. So this conflict will be resolved in favor of avoidance. This is how should read the advertisement from motivational theories perspective. Okay, this is good. So this is one way of creating a negative emotion towards using negative emotions and negative effect, create negative effect using advertisements. Another example. Wow, what we have here, this is the Audi car, Audi brand advertisement. What do you think? What happens here? What people are doing here? What is this lady is doing? So I think she throws a full of red painting to the car, right? Whose car is this? I believe the advertisement explains itself. This is the car of the husband, boyfriend, or someone who she's jealous with. So what she's doing, she is very jealous and tries to harm the car, right? Because the guy shows interest, more interest to the car. So the lady sees the car as a competitor, right? So what is this case? In this case, there's a fun, of course. It's a funny thing, but tries to understand that if here uh, it shows the negative emotion of one person towards your product. So if you buy this product, the lady will be angry because she will be jealous. Actually, it's not a bad thing, but it's a funny thing, and it is a thing that you like. Okay, so because everybody likes, especially men, when they are really liked too much by other people. So this is the case where it's a simple and funny advertisement. It shows that if you buy this car, your mate will be jealous and try to harm the car. So her negative effect will create a positive effect on your side. So this is another example. Another example is trying to create some embarrassment, right? So here the advertisement tries to show how not using a product will generate a embarrassing situation for you. So what type of theories we use in this advertisement? If you go to the, for example, the learning theories, you will remember the negative reinforcement, right? Under the negative reinforcement of the learning theories, this advertisement shows that if you don't use this product, you will suffer socially and psychologically because you will have a smell of, let's say, sweat. So what you have to do, you have to get rid of this bad situation and you should not be embraced by your situation. The solution for this is to use this deodorant, right? So this is how advertisement tries to impose the negative reinforcement and explain the situation. This is what we have in our case. So this is a good example of imposing the negative emotion and affect based on the embarrassment of not using the embarrassment consequences of not using a particular brand or product. Yeah, so what we have more, for example, we have also the negative effect used for guilt, creating some guilt feeling, right? Feeling guilty of not doing something or doing something. So this is also another way of doing the thing. So what we have here, actually, you see the Michelin tires, and you see the picture of the baby next to it. What does it mean? As you will remember from the Volvo ad last week, generally what we have here is that if you don't use this advertisement tries to load a meaning to the a responsibility to the Michelin tires. The advertisement says that tires are so important that they are really a critical factor for the safety of your family and especially for your baby. So your this advertisement says that you have to be careful in your selection for tires because the tires are directly related to the security. You saw the same thing in the Volvo advertisement last week. In the motivation part, when we were talking about the needs, hierarchy of needs, you saw that there are other let's say, important needs, safety needs, which were directly related with the safety in driving. And Volvo was targeting those consumers with safety needs in the hierarchy of needs. So this is the same thing here. Michelin tries to impose a fear and feeling of guilty to not using Michelin tires. So this is also a good example of creating some, let's say, effects based on the negative effects. I mean, and fear and guilt emotions. So this is another important and good advertisement, effective advertisement. So generally, when we create the effect, we need to understand how people feel about our brand product. What is their emotional experience with us? So how we learn them? Normally, one way of doing it, of course, making a survey, right? But generally, nowadays, the data can be collected through structured and unstructured formats, especially in the digital days now. All digital, let's say, all digital advertisements or all digital communication is done through generally social media, websites, etc. So when we look at the social media or to the websites for consumer comments, we can understand what they think and feel about us, right? This is why it is very important that we need to really understand. We need to really understand how they feel. So we need to collect the unstructured data. So one way of doing it, one way of understanding the sentiments of the or sentiments of the let's say the feelings of the consumers is social media listening. So what we do in social media listening? In social media listening, we are just trying to understand how they feel about a brand or product. So this social media listening is called also the sentiment analysis. So we collect the information shared by the consumers in the social media, and we code them based on the emotions that they reflect. So we can take let's say, the sharing of the customer, each customer, we collect them into the database, then we group and code them based on the emotional states. And we can understand what people feel about it or not feel about it. So this is called sentiment analysis. By collecting social media conversations and opinions of consumers about our brands, products, or companies, and by analyzing this information from emotions perspective, whether this customer is happy, unhappy, angry, etc., we can understand the sentiment towards our brand, products, or companies. This is what we do in the social media sentiment analysis. Now, involvement, we are now going into the very important topic. The name of the topic is involvement. Actually, involvement is our perceived interest, right? Our interest and interest towards something and the relevance of something in our life. So involvement is the degree which something is important for us, actually. Okay, this is what the exact definition is. We can define involvement as something which is, if it is actually involvement, is the level of importance of something for us. So if the involvement is high, this means that this thing is very important for us. If the involvement is low, so our involvement with something is low, then the importance of that thing is not so important for us. So when we translate this into the marketing perspective, if the involvement of one person with a product is high, this means that the purchase of this product is important for that person. Or if the involvement of one person with a product is low, this means that that product purchase situation is not so important for that person. He or she already knows what he is buying and he buys the regular case. So this is involvement. So if, for example, involvement is high, our motivation also high and motivation is also high. So this is very important. Now, of course, there are some antecedents of involvement and there are some results of the involvement. So what here we have is in the left side, you see three types of factors which can be called as the antecedents of involvement. These are first, personal factors. Second, uh, some stimulus factors. And third, the situational factors. So what are these factors? So if one product or maybe a message or anything, any object, any stimulus is the one that we need, or we give, it is very important for us, or we are highly interested on that, or its value for us is too high, then we may have a high involvement on that thing. Okay, and vice versa is valid. If we don't need too much that, or if it is not so important for us, or we are not so interested with that, or its value is not so worthy for us, then we have a low involvement towards that object. So personal factors like the need level, importance level, interest level, and its value of the object directly defines the level of involvement. Okay? And another factor which also affects the involvement level is the stimulus factors. So here, what we have differentiation of alternatives. We have sources of communication, and we have content of communication. So the degree of our involvement may be also defined by some stimulus characteristics. For example, if this stimulus, like a product, if it is very differentiated from others, we will involve highly because it's a different thing and we need it. Or if it is, for example, advertisement, the source of communication, so who is in the advertisement, may affect our involvement. Or, for example, if we have interested what is said in the environment, in the advertisement, and if it is an interesting thing for us, what is said in the advertisement, then we will be highly involved. So, for products, the differentiation of the product as a stimulus factor affects our level of involvement in the products. The source of communication and content of communication, so who is telling the message and what the message is, are important determinants of involvement level in the involvements with the advertisement. Okay, and some situational factors. So the context that we are buying the product, or the place, the occasion that we are buying the product, are also important determinants of our involvement with the purchase decision process or purchase situation. So these are the three factors: personal factors, stimulus factors, and the situational factors, which all affect our levels of involvement in advertisements, products, or purchase decisions. And what are the consequences? So when we highly involved with an advertisement, of course, what we do, we can just evaluate the advertisement, understand the advertisement, become aware of what the advertisement says, and the advertisement generally become effective. If we are highly involved with a product because of personal factors or stimulus factors, then maybe we can perceive the product superior, right? Or we can make a good evaluation of the product and buy the product. We can prefer that product over others. Or we can just, let's say, that product become more important for us after we involve highly. Or if we are involved highly with the purchase decision, then we will really make a good search because that purchase decision will be very important for us. So buying a butter from the supermarket and a car from the car gallery, these are two different purchase decision situations. In the butter side or in the milk side, let's say, the involvement may be low because the risks are low and there is not too much importance for the customer. But if you are buying a car, you become highly involved in the situation. You make a research and you try to make the right decision, right? This is important and it depends on the involvement level, low and high. So this is so involvement can be considered as a function of personal, situational, and also stimulus related, let's say, factors. This is very important. So what types of involvement? So with which objects we can be involved with? We can be involved with products, right? Thinking about product. If the product is a thing, if we think heavily about the product, we create a cognitive process. This is our emotional process. This is called product involvement. Or messages, for example. We can be involved about an advertisement messages. How we pay attention to the advertisement. Do we pay attention or not? Is it making the required effect on us or not? And situational involvement. So the involvement towards the places that we make the purchases. So let's go on with the product involvement first. So actually, our level of interest related to a product shows our product involvement level. So if we are highly interested with a product, this means that this product is a high involvement product for us. But generally, high involvement products, but this is not necessarily a rule, but generally, high involvement products are those products who really bear some substantial risk when we make a wrong decision about the product. This is why it is very important. This is why it is very important to understand that high risk products or products which are perceived as a high risk may be really, let's say, maybe really increasing our involvement level. As I give you an example, high involvement products are those products which, when we do a wrong decision, when we make a wrong decision about it, there will be many financial or other related consequences. So this is why uh, low involvement products and high involvement products go through different decision processes. In the high involvement product cases, the consumer tries to make the right decision by making extensive research, spending an investment, high amount of mental effort, physical effort, try to search the alternatives and understand all details about the product before making the final decision. Or because if the final decision is wrong, then there will be problem. So this is what we have in the high involvement product case. So, for example, here in this example, what we see actually, as we see here, the the character in the advertisement is like a hare, like it's a hare. So the hare tries to jump from the bridge to the water, right? So this is a sad situation. So, and the person, the character behind the hare is somehow a solution, right? It's a solution for hair health. So this solution for hair health, which belongs to L'Oreal, right? So what this advertisement tries to do in terms of the product involvement. So this advertisement targets those people who have a high involvement towards the hair care products. Why? Because they are concerned about their hair health, right? Maybe they are losing their hair. They will become soon bald people. In order to not be a bald person, they try to keep their hair on their heads. So they try to be sensitive about, or they are sensitive about their hair care, hair health. So hair care products like this one in the advertisement are the ones that they are highly involved with, and they always pay attention information coming from such sources like L'Oreal about these products. So by some attention catching, eye catching techniques like using characters in the advertisement, L'Oreal tries to uh, attract the attention of those people who are highly involved into the health hair care products. Okay, so this is the essence. And what it says in the advertisement, what the story says that the character behind the hair care solution tries to save the guy before the hair jumps out from the bridge into the water. This is what the advertisement tries to explain to the audience. And this is a very effective, very fun, very nice advertisement, which is directly connected to the product involvement case. So what type of risks we have then. So in the products, actually, with the consumption of the products, we may face several risks. What are these risks? First of all, we have a monetary risk. By buying this product and realizing that this product does not function properly or the performance of the product is not good, then what will happen? We will lose money, right? Because we already bought the product and we are not happy with that, or it is broken even, or it continuously broken. So it is bad. So we may have some monetary risk, right? So if we pay high amount of money to the product, especially monetary risk is very important. So in this case, we are highly involved with the product to not make any mistake. What about functional risk? So maybe there is problem with the functioning of the product, so we cannot get really and let's say there's no any met expectations about the performance of the product. So it's a functional risk, right? So if the product doesn't function properly, we have monetary risk and functional risk at the same time. So what about the physical risk? So for example, here our main capital actually is our health, right? So if the product gives harms us physically, for example, then it will be create a big risk, physical risk, health risk. So in that type of products like medicine, vitamins, or care products, we are highly sensitive to physical risk. And these are also high involvement products if we have a physical risk sensitivity. What about the social risk? So under the social risk, we have, let's say, the risk that we will be alienated from the rest of the society. We will not be accepted to the group because we are just using some sort of product, right? So in the social risk, our capital is generally our self-confidence and our image. So if we are not sure about our image effect or using such product, this creates a social risk. This type of product can be anything from clothes to cars, electronics, jewelry, everything. So what is important here? The products which especially have some symbolic meanings and let's say status creating meanings, then we may have a social risk of not using that product or using that product. And finally, of course, we have a psychological risks. This is also important because psychological risks creates really enormous, let's say, discomfort in the consumer. So, for example, here we may have again lose our image, reputation, or respect in the community if we don't use the product or we use the product. So in both cases, there may be some psychological risks. So this type of products generally like perfumes or things. So in order to, let's say, prevent some psychological risks, psychological discomfort, we use perfumes, right? To smell good and to not be embarrassed. We saw in the advertisements previously how these negative effects are used. So in addition to the product involvement, we have also the message involvement, right? In the message involvement, so if the customer interacts with the message, understands the message, decodes the message, and also the message creates the intended reaction, then there is a high involvement with the message. So actually, the reaction of the consumer is not the part of the high involvement, but it is maybe a consequence of high involvement. But generally, message involvement means that the customer has a motivation to pay attention to the advertisement and understands the advertisement and tries to decode the advertisement. So this is message involvement. In order to increase the effect of the message involvement, we can use unexpected events, right? So we can use new stimuli, new graphics, new music. We can do instant reactions, for example, loud music, or totally a silent creation, etc. We can also include celebrities, famous people, so they will create somehow, let's say, some involvement because it will be interested for the consumers. And of course, we can really create and show the value which is provided to the consumers through the let's say advertisement. And of course, if you create some entertaining environment with the message and gamification techniques like making it as a game, then the message will be highly will attract attention, and the customers will pay attention to the message and create a high involvement situation. So these are the important things that so novelty creates high involvement. Important people, the message source, and the message content create high involvement in advertisement messages. And the articulation of the value that we provide to the consumers is also creating a high involvement environment. And finally, the situational involvement. In the situational involvement, in the situational involvement, we are dealing with the interaction intensity of consumer with the place that the purchase takes place. So this place can be the store, physical store, website, or any place that the customer tries to buy a product. So uh, or at least looks for the product. So situation involvement is the engagement level. If the situation involvement is high, this means that the customer is highly engaged with the store. So it spends time in the store, it looks all the products in the store, etc. In order to prolong this time and increase the engagement, what we should do, we need really to create somehow we need to create somehow an important interactive environment. So we can create some customized solutions and offers to the customer right inside the store. This is very important. And also we may create also somehow, let's say, the consultancy to the customer about what he likes or what he doesn't like and what can be suitable for them. So interaction inside the store is the best source of increasing the involvement with the store or the place that the purchase decision takes place. So it all increases the situational involvement. Yes, so this is what we have today from the affect, emotion side and involvement side. So we need to know these two things in addition to the motivation, and they are important influencers of consumer behavior. Emotions and involvement, they are important. So, dear students, for today we have come to the end of the class. So, I already sent you an email related to the midterm exam. Next week, at the class time, next week today, at the class time at 12 o'clock, there will be midterm exam, and you will see the midterm exam at 12 o'clock in your, let's say, in your OLearn platform, Blackboard OLearn platform. So the exam will be composed of around 45 questions, as I wrote you in the email. I just sent you an email about this. You can check your mailboxes. But however, we can just I can just tell you that in the midterm exam that we will do next week at 12 o'clock, there will be 45 questions composed of multiple choice and true-false questions. You will have around 50 minutes to complete these 45 questions. The important thing is that if you pass one question, you will never come back to that again. So please respond each question and then proceed to the next question. Every time you proceed to the next question, you will not have the chance to return back to the previous question. This is very important. Your internet connection should be very strong. Please make sure that you don't experience any connection problems. This is very important. I especially urge you because if you miss the exam, however, there will be maybe another exam for makeup, but it will be very hard and essay questions. I will not make multiple choice. So please make sure that you attend to the exam, all of you, which is very important. So I don't want anybody to miss the exam because of technical issues. Please find a place to connect to the OLearn in a very high-speed internet and make sure that you attend to the class. The coverage of the exam will be all chapters that we covered, including today. Okay, so from the beginning till the end of today's class, it will be covered in the midterm exam. In addition to midterm exam next week, I will plan one quiz, and I will make a quiz maybe 2 weeks later. Okay, so we will make also a quiz, but first midterm exam next week. Okay, next week we will have a midterm exam at 12 o'clock. I already sent an email to you. This is all from my side. Any questions, dear students? Thank you, dear students. Thank you. Take care and see you next week in the midterm.